All right, so color mixing. Where did my color wheel go? I have a little one in here somewhere. Yeah, we'll get it later. Because we're going to use the Munsell color wheel. Anyway, we'll look at some alternative color wheels at some point. Maybe Thursday. So I have this Hemi palette. I also have my big Dirty Mama palette here, and I know which colors in here are the ones that match the ones on your list and in your rental palettes if you have them. So I'll only pull those and not pull all the ones that you don't have. I have some extras just because, you know, sometimes you're in the paint aisle and a color calls your name. Okay. We're going to start by trying to mix up our 5R red. Typically with watercolor, it can either come in a palette already or in one of these pans, or it can come in a tube. If it comes in a pan, it'll kind of look like this one where it's like filled to the top. But it can dry out and harden completely, and that's totally fine. The traditional way of getting your watercolor wet, again, is to take your brush. Oh no, this one has a shaky furl. Okay, I'm going to grab this one instead. Is to take your brush, swish it around in your water, off camera. There's some nice ASMR. Okay, and then just drip it onto your different colors. I think that takes a lot of time, and I want to get painting as soon as possible. So I have a spray bottle, and I spritz down my watercolor palette, and y'all are welcome to take this and pass it around into the sand. Let's write that down to you and just pass that around. Okay. So I usually give it a nice, healthy rainfall. And then this is going to go kind of off camera for a little bit. And I'm going to try to describe these colors as well as I can to you, but the first thing that we want to look for is like the brightest, most like platonic ideal of a tomato freshly plucked from the garden red. So doesn't really have any cool tones to it, is like that vibrant red. And I'm going with this red. So maybe I'll turn on my light. Maybe that will help, or maybe it won't. A little bit. So I'm going with this red. Here, this is our cadmium red. And when I swatch it on the paper, if I take it just straight out of my pan and swatch it, it's going to look like this, which is like very opaque, very dark. Instead of putting it directly on my paper, what I want to do is grab myself a plate and use this as a secondary mixing area. Now, when I'm just being a painter and not doing color studies, I kind of just have areas on my palette that become just like a quagmire of color. So I have like reddish yellow area, purplish area, greeny blue area, darker colors. But if I was trying to keep my colors really, really pure, I would grab a plate instead. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my brush. Just a sec. This has a little ring on the back. There we go. I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to just brush it against the whatever paint remnants are in my little well here. And I'm going to paint it onto my plate. Now my plate was a little wet, so it's starting to spread out. That's just fine. I'm actually going to mix some more water into it by just dipping my brush in the water and sprinkling a few drops over top. And I want to mix it until we get to a level of viscosity where like I could pour this around the plate. It is a liquid. Once I have mixed some water in here, now I'm actually calling this a paint. It's also in watercolor terms sometimes called a wash, so a wash is essentially any time we're adding our pigment in here. I've just activated the pigments by putting water on them. And now that I have put it in this puddle of water, it is a wash. Or I can refer to it as my paint now. So I'm going to set this just off to the side. Ooh, I got some nice transfer from the bottom of my plate there. And I am just going to give myself a little swatch of this bright tomatoey red. So this is my cadmium red. There is a second red in there. And so I would wait to do any labeling of these until you get your second red on the board, because you might realize, oh, I thought that was a lot more warm toned, but actually I have an even warmer red. So I'll show you the difference between the two. Bringing my plate back over, I'm going to rinse my brush real good. The thing in watercolor is to try to always keep your brush rinsed before it ever goes back and touches anything in your wells. That's what I call good paint hygiene, and it keeps you from having scuzzy, dirty, mucky paints. Okay, now I'm going to go and right next to my cadmium red, I have another red right here. I need to refill it. It has a little bit more of a cool or like blue undertone to it. It's almost like a great lipstick shade. And I'm going to put that on my plate over here. And so I don't know if you can really see the difference, but this is much more like tomato soup. This is much more, I always just think it looks like lipstick when it's painted on here. And I'm going to mix that up into my water. And apply. You'll notice it has more of maybe like a pinkish tone to it or a rosy tone. All of these words, you'll quickly realize, oh, this is why Munsell invented a system, because this would actually be like in our red-purple spectrum. Or blue-red, is that what it's called? What's it called? Nope, it's red-purple. Okay, I was right. So our warmer toned red is our cadmium red. I just put cad red. And our cooler toned red is alizarin, I think I spelled it right, crimson. Apologies that these are on the side. I'll try to write them this way. Alright, so those are our reds. If I want to compare that to this palette, I think I'm going to take these straight out of the palette because they're not the strongest colors. I have this red, which I think is my warmest toned red, which is like sits somewhere in the middle here. And they don't give us like names for any of these colors, I don't think. Well, they do. This one, 19, is called Oriental Red. So it's what would be called Chinese red, probably in a tube. And then let's see, what do they have on here for my 13, 14, light rose, fluorescent pink. No, I'm thinking more of the 19. Underglaze red? Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, these names aren't like the most helpful. No, not really. This is just like a more muted version. I'll help you if you have a palette that's like this quality. Try to find colors that work and like where the balance is. It's just not going to be as easy if you have like colors with real names. So this is, red, and then underglaze red. Okay. But these are the two that we're looking for, this warmer one and this cooler one. We should also have a blue in there, and so you might have to dip your paint in, make a little spot over on your plate. I'm doing this as we speak, and test it out. It should be this bright, like true blue. This bright true blue is our French ultramarine. I immediately forgot which way I wanted to write the words. And French ultramarine, we have 2 reds in your palette. You're going to have 2 yellows. The French ultramarine is a good blue. If you don't have French ultramarine, I don't think anybody has, well, some people who purchase their own may have something similar to this in their palette. But you can do oh, this like didn't really get that wet. This is a cyan, which is kind of a more modern, brighter blue that gets used in ink and printing a lot. So cyan is like our secondary blue option if you have it. I don't believe I required you to have both, but
Sorry, you said like the pure blue is French ultramarine?
Yeah, this blue up here is French ultramarine. This one is cyan. Maybe I just, yeah, let's just do it this way. And then maybe I'll remember. Okay. Then we're going to look at our yellows. So we're going to have to make little washes. And it might be enough to just get your brush really wet, touch it against the paint, and then mix it together on your plate. And we're going to do a swatch of each of your yellows. Let's see. What's that? That's a little too much. 1 minute here. I have 3 yellows I'm trying to decide between. Okay, I think those 2 are actually the same yellow. Alright, you are going to have yeah, there we go. You're going to have a yellow that looks like this, and a yellow that looks a little bit darker, more orangey. If I get this light to just be just right.
If we rented from you, should we have those?
Yes, you should have 2 different yellows in there. If you don't,
does that include an orange or no?
No, there's not. So the one that looks orange is actually going to be this darker yellow. Okay. Unless you swatch it and you're like, that's truly, truly orange, then it means at one point in some of my classes it got mixed up, and I'll get you the correct yellow.
This one looks very orange.
Okay. I'll come and check it in a moment.
Okay.
We don't need it yet. So the lighter one is our cadmium yellow. I'm going to just write it like this. Cad, yellow, medium. And the darker one is cad yellow, deep. If you have something that looks, so Scout, if yours looks like this, like a true orange color, then this is what's called pyrrole orange. Between that or that.
Yeah, like it, I don't
I'll
know,
come
it
check.
doesn't look quite like either.
Okay, let me come check it.
Wait,
I'll repeat. You might, in your box, either have a color that is similar to this, or it might be more like this. Oh, I'm going off the... If it has more of a blue undertone, rather than being like a outdoor nature tree leaf type green, it is Prussian green. If it is more of this true green, maybe even has a little bit of a yellow tone, it's chromium oxide. Maybe. I don't know how to spell that. I use both, honestly, a lot. So if you don't have one of those, maybe make a little note of it off to the side of your paper so that I can give you some of it at the end of class. And then, let's see, what else? I believe I asked you to have a burnt umber, so that's going to be your darkest brown. It's going to be like this. And then there's also going to be a lighter colored brown in there that should look almost like a golden yellow tone, but it looks less yellow when it's in the pan than it does on your paper. And that's our raw sienna. There are other colors that are very, very close to these that are acceptable to use. So somewhere between this cad yellow deep and raw sienna is a color called gamboge. It's a very French yellow. There are, you might have another, somewhere you might have a color that's very bright and vivid pink, like this. This is either magenta or opera pink, just depending on what brand you buy it in.
the acrylic lick that there really isn't magenta in watercolors.
Oh, there's definitely magenta in watercolors. Opera pink is one of the magentas.
Is it in a
But I have several labeled magenta that I can give you a little bit of.
well, she said the rose would like,
Yeah, rose. Rose is going to be another one that's close.
okay.
When you are mixing with a traditional palette, you want these two reds, which are the cadmium red, the alizarin crimson. You want a blue. Traditionally, it was the French ultramarine. I like to have two yellows. You can get by with just one, which, if it was me, I would probably, if I had to eliminate one, I would go with the cadmium yellow deep. But ideally, you want cadmium yellow medium as well as cadmium yellow deep. Something about the chemical process when these are heated to different degrees, when the cadmium is heated. So you'll notice that cadmium red, cadmium yellow deep. It's all the same mineral. It's just been heated to different levels, and that changes its color. So something about it pushes from this cadmium yellow medium to the cadmium yellow red. The cadmium yellow deep sits somewhere in between, and just that little touch of red makes it mix so differently, to my eye anyway. So far I have 2 reds, 2 yellows, and a blue. Then I would add burnt umber and raw sienna, and that would be the palette that I would take to a desert island if I could have no other colors for the rest of my life. Now, if I have a slightly bigger watercolor pouch, then let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's say I have a few more colors. That's where I'm going to add in these other ones that I've swatched, like the cyan, the opera pink, the Prussian green, and the chromium oxide green. That probably makes up a majority of my palette when I paint. So even though I can fit all the beautiful colors in the world. And I have bigger palettes than this. This is just like my go-to everyday traveler. I have a few other colors that I like to have in here. You may not have them in yours. But like I said, if you're ever running across a thing where you're like, I really feel like for mixing this specific color for my illustration for this class, I just need something a little different than what has come in my kit, I am happy to squeeze you out a little dollop of it. You probably only need the tiniest smidgen, so you don't need to buy a whole tube. I'm very happy to like loan out color. In this, we have not even found my favorite color yet, which I believe is on your list, which is going to look like a dark, almost black in your palette. And when you swatch it, it's going to look very like blue-black, depending on how much you get onto your page. And when you swatch, don't be afraid to like lay down a little bit of color. Like this is like a little bit over my knuckle. So the smaller your swatches are, the less you can really see how it looks on the paper. That being said, if you've done itsy swatches so far, you'll be okay. This color right here, this is called Pains. And Pains is a possessive here, gray. Some guy named Payne made some gray, and it's a good color. It's a blue, like blue gray, blue black color, and when we mix a little bit of Payne's gray, let's bring this. It's a little full, but it'll be fine. A little bit of Payne's gray there, with a little bit of our burnt umber, we get a nice black. Why? Everybody oohs and ahs. The stadium goes wild. How does this happen? This is Payne's gray and burnt umber. So, why?
Because the cool tones and the warm tones cancel each other out?
It's like a little bit less, like touchy-feely than that. So, if we are on our color wheel, and our Payne's gray sits somewhere in this, somewhere in the blue-purple spectrum over here, and we go across the color wheel from here to our complementary color. So a complementary color is simply the color that is directly across the color wheel. We have orange. Orange is simply, or really, brown is simply super desaturated orange. So it's orange that has come closer and closer to that low value of chroma on our charts. So if you look at your charts and you look at the red yellow page, you're going to see that the lower chromatic ones look pretty brown. When we mix it with our blue here, or our Payne's gray, which is very much in this blue purple, blue violet spectrum, we're bringing it more towards the theoretical center of our color wheel, which in paint mixing and when we are mixing with pigments is black. This is the difference between, later we'll cover this in the lecture, but right now let this little bit of vocabulary sink into your head, and then later you'll be like, oh yeah, when we were color mixing. This is called additive color mixing, which means that we are adding the pigments together to get closer to black. Subtractive color mixing is what's done with light, and that gets us closer to white. So it's a little confusing. We'll talk about it later. Just know that when we're mixing with paint, the more colors that we are adding into our mixture, the closer we're going to get to like a gray, black, brown color. And when we are mixing light, it's going to be the opposite. The more colors of the spectrum we're adding back in, the more our eye perceives it as white. Right now, though, we're working with pigment. So, does anybody else have more colors than that? Does anybody have a true purpley color in there?
It's like a grayish purple.
A grayish purple?
It's dark. It's
Okay.
I don't really have any of it, so I can't quite tell what it is.
Yeah. Okay.
It is purple. It's just really
It's not one that I traditionally throw into the kits, but if you have a little bit more of it,
Oh no.
no, not like that. It's something else. Okay, I'll take a look at it, see if I can identify it, or we'll replace it with something more useful. This violet color, I would actually have to double check which violet it is in my paint tube collection, but this can also be a useful color to have. Why might you want to have these colors when we know that we can mix red and yellow together to get orange? Why even have a true orange color in your palette? Yes.
Give an exact color.
To get an exact color, that's one reason. Any other reason?
So you don't waste anything, it's just faster.
Not wasting anything faster. Yeah, it gets you to the operant color that you want faster. There's a third secret reason. I want to see if anybody knows it. All right, so the third secret reason is so far all or most of these colors, except for the Payne's gray, on here that I've shown you are what are called single pigment colors, which means they have exactly one ingredient making up the color that you see here. So it's one type of mineral or plant-based material or chemical mixture that creates the color. The more pigments that you put in your mix, it's kind of like throwing like a little get-together backyard barbecue. And you're inviting your friends, and maybe you want to invite some people from work. Maybe you want to invite some people from your high school friend group. Maybe you want to invite some people that you've met here in school. These are types of people you might invite to a party, I assume. Some of you might have parties. I don't know. Okay. But sometimes it can be hard to get those groups of friends to blend. I think that we've all been there, where they're like, well, Becky's my best work friend, but all my friends from high school would hate her. Or, if you've ever tried to plan a wedding and you're trying to figure out, who to set your Uncle Greg next to because, he's just a hard guy to stand for 5 minutes or longer. Uncle Greg might not be a single pigment color. He might have a lot of opinions. Your single pigment colors are like your ride or dies. You can invite them in with any of your other single pigment colors and they're going to get along great. All right? That's where this extended metaphor is going. If you have, say, a violet hue like this that is already a mix of your red and your blue, and you want to just like push it a little bit more red, but you're not using one of the reds that's in here, say that this violet color is made up of, let's do a mix of my alizarin crimson and my ultramarine blue. It's over here on my palette. Uh-oh. I was going to say trust me, but I'll start mixing it in front of you. So I've mixed up this violet color. I'm decently close here. That's not too bad. Let's say that I actually want it to be a little bit more red though. And I come over here, and I don't know what red has made up this color so far. And I grab some of my cadmium red, and I mix it in. Suddenly, this has gone, like, kind of more towards the brown end of the spectrum. And that's because cadmium red has these warm undertones in it. It's related to these yellows. In fact, it's the same chemically. It's the same, it comes from the same mineral. So, if I had taken my alizarin crimson and instead mixed in maybe just a little bit more of my blue, I might be getting a closer match here. But if it was a different blue, like my cyan, I'm going to push it further away. So just being able to consistently, I need to make this smaller, make these same colors. It helps to start with the single pigment colors, because this here is the difference between 3 pigments, whereas both of these have 2 pigments just in different ratios. So if you can, use your single pigment colors to blend, because they'll get you a more true or vivid version of the color.
I figured out which one it is. It's the 3 pigment one of the purples. It's like that's the color.
Okay, I think that's one of the magenta tones that I have. Yeah, this mixes a lot closer to that. So would I need to have it in my palette if I can mix it just using 3 of my base colors? No, not really. I just need to learn to use my colors well. So this is our little like test page. What I want you to do is either, if you need another sheet of watercolor paper, I can give you one. Or if you would rather this be in your sketchbook, if you have a mixed media sketchbook, I want you to go through and swatch out the colors in like the order that they're in your paint pan, and then just label them. That way you know how to find them rather quickly, so that you can have a little guide off to the side. My like first exploration and any like new colors that I get is always like a mess, and I'm mixing them all together, and then I move on to making a little map for myself in my paint pan. A nice set of watercolors, like the really nice ones, don't come with like a swatch sheet. Some of the like more like you order them and then they ship from China, because you got like, it was like $20 for the watercolor set, and it's a brand you've never heard of. Some of those will come with swatch cards, either for you to fill out or to have, but I saw somebody recently review a really, really nice watercolor set, and they were complaining because it didn't have a swatch card in it. And it's like, oh, actually the really nice ones don't have swatch cards, because they expect that you've been painting long enough, you know what all these colors look like, if you're dropping that money on paint. So I'm going to give you about, let's say, the next 20 minutes or so, till just past 7. So like 7:05, to do a little swatch sheet. One moment. And then we're going to move on to the next part of our color mixing escapades. Question that is relevant to this and should be on camera? Okay. I will then end this recording.